Hi, I'm Charlotte Cullen. Welcome to my studio at serf here in Leeds. I'm part of the YSI Sculpture Network. This series is titled Study for a Shield After Battle, and there's a few in this work, and they built up around a few different areas that I was thinking of in terms of sort of craftsmanship and labour, and whose labour is valued and how that links into monumentalism, how that might link to the histories of sculpture, but also sort of classed and gendered ways of making and working. More recently, I started working with a technique called plasma cutting. So it started on a residency in China, this technique of plasma cutting, and I wanted to kind of emboss the metal actually as part of this sculpture park that we were working in. And it turns out you don't need to speak another language to be told, no way do you have the time or money to do that. So instead we settled on what I now know was plasma cutting, but I couldn't like work that out, but I worked with a local craftsman to cut into these large metal pieces. This piece here, you can see that if you go quite slow on the metal, it melts it. And you can, if you go at an angle, then that metal will kind of catch to it. For a long time I've been more interested in leaving the surface untreated so that you can really see this whole like patina building and this conversation that's happening through the materials and how it's building up. I started to think about other ways of trying to document labour. I was thinking about people who worked in care work or in cleaning or in textiles, and this idea of weaving felt like it was bringing a lot of those things together. So you have the sort of the aesthetics and physicality of the textiles, but also I think weaving feels healing, like you're bringing something together and building a material. So I was quite interested in that sense, and that's when I started playing around with trying to weave with the metal. So that was part of this exploration of weaving, but I was also looking at the figure of Brid, or Bride, Saint Brigid. Brid's the female patron saint of Ireland. She also is an interesting figure because she's sort of seen as a queer saint. So she had an anam cara, which translates to soul friend. And this might be because she is rooted in a Irish pagan goddess, which is why I keep calling her Brid rather than Saint Brigid, because that was the name of the pagan goddess. And so it could be that as she kind of was brought into the Catholic religion, it became this thing of her having this soul friend and someone that she was linked to. But there's still a queerness in that that's quite interesting. But Brid also is linked to and represents the land, as well as craftsmanship, metalwork, and healing. So all of these things are really integral and like things I'm exploring in my practice. I like carried this from the uni in York to Blank. It was such a nightmare. I worried so much. Tried to call an Uber and he wouldn't let me in the car with it, which is fair. These were made working with Ellen Burrows of LUTRA. So this is the plate that made the prints. You can see kind of the ways in which it was cut into. But then in talking with Ellen, I learnt that after creating an edition, printers destroy the plate. And I was quite interested in what that meant in terms of how I work with the materials. So I cut it in half and reprinted it to make this diptych. So it's sort of this progression of the plates in process. And then my hope is to kind of weld this into another sculpture so it continues to have this life, and then it can't be used to create more editions, but it's still kind of having this like continued conversation. This technique is called shinkale, which was my favourite term at the time because it's a very fancy term for using tissue paper and sticking it down.